Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we'll be covering how strength training can be progressed over time using 3 different progression models. Before we can explore the progression models of strength training, we first need to establish what strength specifically means. Essentially, strength refers to how much load is able to be lifted in a particular exercise. However, the expression of strength is more nuanced than this. We need to understand that strength is specific to the task. What this means is that strength needs to be defined by the exact exercise that the trainee wants to become stronger at, what range of motion they want to lift the weight through, and how many reps they want to become stronger at. Generally, strength is expressed using full range of motion in classic compound lifts like the squat or bench press and performed for a 1 rep max. So what factors contribute to maximal strength performance? There are 2 primary trainable qualities that contribute to strength performance. These are neural efficiency and muscle size. Neural efficiency refers to how well the athlete can recruit all their muscle fibers at the right time in a coordinated manner. Basically, neural efficiency refers to being in touch with the skill of lifting heavy loads. This is trained using the specific movement pattern of the strength exercise with heavy loads to train the nervous system to become efficient at the lift. However, once the trainee becomes highly efficient at the lift, how can strength increase further? This is achieved through our second contributing factor to strength, which is muscle size. The size of the prime movers for a specific lift will ultimately determine how much raw material there is to recruit by the nervous system. With all other factors being equal, a bigger muscle will ultimately have a higher potential to become strong, because there is more muscle tissue to contribute to the lift. So once an athlete becomes neurally efficient, they must grow the prime mover muscles to further progress over time. Now that we have covered what strength is and what factors contribute to strength, we can now explore how to program strength training using our 3 primary methods. These 3 models are an accumulation progression, intensification progression, and a realization progression. An accumulation progression is when the trainee increases volume from week to week while intensity remains the same. This can be accomplished by increasing the number of sets performed over time while keeping the load the same. This phase should use higher rep ranges with lighter loads. This phase has the primary goal of hypertrophying the primary muscles used in the strength exercise. This will build the structural foundation of muscle mass to increase the total amount of tissue that can be used to produce force. This will potentiate the following phases when specific neural efficiency is emphasized. A mesocycle using an accumulation progression model may look something like this. Let's use the back squat as an example strength exercise to apply this progression to. In week 1, the back squat uses 2 sets of 6 to 10 reps with an appropriate load. Let's say for this trainee, the load used will be 120 kilos. In week 2, the load and rep ranges remain the same, while the sets increase to 3. The sets then increase to 4 and 5 in the 3rd and 4th weeks respectively, while the load and rep ranges remain the same. An intensification progression model is when the trainee increases intensity from week to week, while volume remains the same. This can be accomplished by increasing the load lifted each week, while keeping the number of sets the same. This phase has the primary goal of increasing neural efficiency while training with enough volume to maintain muscle mass. This phase of training should use rep ranges of around 3 to 6, meaning that load should be heavier than the accumulation period. A mesocycle using an intensification progression model may look something like this. Let's continue with our example of the back squat to apply this progression method to. As we can see here, the number of sets remains the same each week except for week 1, since this is an unloading week. The rep range of 3 to 6 also remains the same each week, while the load increases. For this example, let's say the load starts with 125 kilos in the first 2 weeks and increases by 2.5 kilos each week. So in week 4, the athlete is squatting 130 kilos in the given rep range. A realization progression model is when the trainee increases intensity from week to week while volume decreases simultaneously. This can be accomplished by decreasing both the reps and number of sets performed. This will allow a significant progression in load lifted each week, since both reps and sets are being reduced. The rep range used should be low in the 1 to 4 range. Since the load is heavy, this is the most specific form of training that can be performed and should have the most benefit to maximal strength performance. This phase has the primary goal of peaking the athlete for maximum strength. Volume is reduced to decay fatigue so that they are in a fresh state to perform at the best. A mesocycle using a realization progression model may look something like this. Once again, the back squat is used as an example to apply this progression to. As we can see here, both the reps and sets decrease each week. Week 1 uses 4 sets of 4 reps, week 2 uses 3 sets of 3 reps, week 3 uses 2 sets of 2, and week 4 uses 1 set of 1, where the trainee can attempt a new 1 rep max. So let's say for this example, the load starts at 135 kilos in week 1 and increases by 5 kilos each week. So by week 4, the load used is 150 kilos. This form of progression should have the trainee in a fresh state to perform in peak strength condition. Now that we have covered the 3 progression models of strength training, let's now put these together to form a complete strength cycle. Let's continue with the back squat as our example strength exercise. Just to be aware, performing the back squat once per week with no accessory lifts is not a complete program. This video is just going to outline the progression for the main lift. In reality, other training sessions will be performed throughout the week, and accessory exercises will probably also be performed in the same session. Let's structure this cycle by using 2 4-week mesocycles with each progression model, meaning that 6 total mesocycles will be implemented in this cycle. The first 2 mesocycles will follow an accumulation progression, the second 2 will use an intensification progression, and the last 2 will follow a realization model. This will allow the trainee to build a solid foundation of muscle before training the neural qualities of strength, and finally to peak by using the most specific methods and decaying fatigue. As we can see here, the first mesocycle follows an accumulation model where volume increases over time using a rep range of 8 to 10 with a load of 120 kilos. The second mesocycle follows the same progression model, although the rep range is reduced to 6 to 8, meaning that the load used is slightly heavier. The third mesocycle uses an intensification model where the load increases each week. Volume remains the same apart from week 1 to act as an unloading week. The rep range used is 4 to 6, while load increases by 2.5 kilos each week. In mesocycle 4, the same progression model is implemented, although the rep range has reduced to 3 to 5, and the load has increased slightly. In the 5th mesocycle, a realization progression has been implemented. As we can see here, the reps and sets decrease each week from 4 sets of 5 to 1 set of 2, while the load increases each week by 5 kilos. And in the 6th and final mesocycle, the same progression model is implemented, although the reps are lower than the previous block and the load used is heavier. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.